Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today I'm bringing you guys an updated top 5 premium ships to avoid buying list. So I would definitely advise to watch the list I put out about 4 months ago. Link to that will be in the description down below. These are ships that I think they are simply not worth either the money, the time that's required to get the resources to get them if they are a resource ship, or they're simply a better option at their tier or somewhere around them if you're looking for a ship at that tier with the same characteristics as the ship being mentioned. Again, this is all my opinion, so take that and do what you will with it. But anyway, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the list, starting at number 5, which is the tier 10 Soviet super cruiser, or large cruiser now, I guess that's what we're calling them, the Sevastopol. So the Sevastopol is a ship that was exceptionally delayed in its development cycle. It was something like 9 months from the announcement of the Sevastopol to the release. In most cases, announcement to release is about 4 to 5 months. So yeah, this one sat in the oven for quite some time. Now, the Sevastopol, the main downsides of it, as you should be seeing in the clip that you're watching right now, is that she utilizes the Kronstadt hull, which is a Tier 9 large cruiser hull at Tier 10. And back when the Kronstadt came out originally, the hull was pretty impressive. It had 75,000 HP at Tier 9, it was decently well armored, and then you had the Kronstadt's guns and radar and other characteristics to back it up. But what they did here with the Sevastopol is they took this hull and then they up-tiered it to Tier 10, and then they stripped it of a little, I think it's either just under or just over 10,000 HP, to where you took the main attraction of this hull and got rid of it. So now you've got what is today a very poorly armored large cruiser hull. The Kronstadt hull is probably the worst hull out of the large cruisers. I mean, again, it was very, very impressive back when she came out, but we've had so many more large cruisers since then with much better armor schemes and such. And that being up to Tier 10 is exceptionally painful. Then they went and they made one of the most gimmicky ships in game. Every consumable on this ship, except for like the hydro, is super gimmicky. The heal has like a 3-minute cooldown time. It's a super heal, so you might think, okay, I can understand it having a 3-minute cooldown time if it's a super heal on a large cruiser. But the heal takes 1 minute and 30 seconds to do its thing. Yeah, so it takes about 4 minutes and 30 seconds if you include the reload time into the heal and then the usage time of the heal for the Sevastopol to do its healing thing once you use a heal. So it takes forever to regen your health, on top of a hull that can't really take a hit. And a lot of times too, you have to wait till you're pretty low in your HP to actually utilize the heal to its full to its fullness, which is pretty, anxiety inducing when you're in a ship with a hull that's exceptionally squishy. So that's the main downside of the Sevastopol to me, at least. But there are some upsides. She just has 15-inch guns. They are Soviet 15-inch shells, and they are pretty accurate. On paper, she's only supposed to be a little bit less accurate than Siegfried, but I find that Siegfried has better dispersion. Might have to do with the arcs or whatever, but that is what it is. The other thing about this ship is that this is a research bureau ship. So this ship, in order to get this ship, you have to regrind lines to the tune of, I think it'll take 5 or 6 times, depending upon when you how well you utilize the double RP bonus. When you have, I think it's at whatever every month it resets at the beginning of every patch. If you utilize that, I think it'll take you 5 times. Plus 2 if you partake in other events and such. You probably have some of these research bureau points stocked up. The Siegfried, in my opinion, is a much better ship overall, better armor. The guns feel more consistent to me. It's a bit more maneuverable, well, not a bit more, it's a lot more maneuverable. It doesn't get the engine boost of the Sevastopol, but also the engine boost is also a short burst engine boost, so it's, again, another gimmicky consumable. But yeah, for what you have to put in to get this ship, it's not worth it. If this was a coal ship or a free XP ship, I feel like this would be a much higher regarded ship, in my opinion, at least, and among others in the community. Again, for the same grindage, you can get the Ohio, which is a fantastic tier 10 battleship. So yeah, that one, not worth it. If you want a 15-inch large cruiser, just get the Siegfried. Much easier to obtain and much more worth it. Alright, moving on down to number 4, we have the tier 7 British battleship, the Collingwood. Now, the Collingwood is a Nelson that got drunk and lost 3 of its guns. And it has normal AP, normal HE, and it doesn't get a super heal while also having less armor than the Nelson. Yeah. But it does get reload booster, and turret 2 on the Collingwood can 360, where turret 2 on the Nelson cannot, or I guess it's turret B technically if you're using the Royal Navy vernacular. But anyway, so yeah, this ship isn't currently available for sale right now. You could only get it, I think you could, can you still get it since the event's still going on, the British Battlecruiser event? I think, yeah, you can still get it right now in the random bundles. But Wargaming did say that this ship will be going on sale in the future. I would imagine probably once the Royal Navy Battlecruiser Early Access event finally comes to a close. But it's not worth it. Absolutely not. Many were looking forward to this potentially being a replacement for the Nelson, since the Nelson was removed for free XP all those months ago. This ain't it. You have 6 guns here, 6 6-inch guns at tier 7, which are very large for tier 7, and you do get the reload booster. So it sounds good out the gate, but 6 guns. 6 guns is a bit of an issue when it comes to battleships, because battleship guns usually aren't that accurate. Now you have some ships like the Slava and the Champagne, which do have more accurate guns, but the Collingwood ain't that. This ship is very frustrating to play, because every shell that hits hurts a lot. And in most cases, unless you get blessed by RNG himself, you're putting like 3 shells in the water in a good salvo. This is still a tier 7 battleship. It has better dispersion than most tier 7 battleships, thankfully, with only having 6 guns, but it's still not hyper railgun accurate like, again, like the Slava or the Champagne. So you do have the reload booster to kind of help you there, and it is normalized AP, so against more heavily armored targets like battleships and, well, I can't even really say heavy cruisers at like tier 7 down, but like from tier 8 to tier 9 heavy cruisers, which you can see because you are a tier 7 battleship, yeah, it's decent against that. But in most cases, you're going to be overpinning ships, unless they angle to you, at which point you will probably laugh as you remove 8 to 9k with just 1 or 2 shells hitting and pinning, if not outright deleting them. But that doesn't happen too often. And do keep in mind too, this is a tier 7 battleship, which means it can get up tier to tier 9, and it can see tier 8 CVs. And the A on the Collingwood is just Joffrey on deck with his Lee Enfield and a Webley. You know, he's double gunning those two. It don't do too much. And again, the Nelson wasn't the best armored ship in the game, and the Collingwood has thinner armor than the Nelson. Yeah, and no super heal, has a normal heal. So you can't reprint your ship after you get vibe checked. And again, this can see tier 9 battleships with much larger guns. This can see the Musashi. Yep, and no super heal. And it's not like the Nelson was that great at tier 9 anyway. Her HE kept her in the ball game there, and the Collingwood doesn't have that. Now, of course, if something shows you broadside, and you've got the AP loaded, and you pop the reload booster, yes, you're going to put a fair amount of hate into the side of their ship. And of course, if you do damage to a tier 9 ship, you do get an economic boost to, because of that. So, sure, it's decent in those cases, but I'd say in like 60% of the cases with the Collingwood, it's just really frustrating, and there's better options at tier 7 for a large calibered tier 7 battleship. And yeah, I wouldn't waste the time or the resources wherever they're going to sell this thing for once she gets put into the armory, be it doubloons, coal, whatever. I wouldn't go after her. There's better options at tier 7. Even at tier 6 if you want a 16-inch battleship with like the West Virginia, which is infinitely better because it's tier 6 and you can only get up to tier 8 and not tier 9. And her 16-inch guns are much more accurate than this thing's from my experiences at least. But anyway, Moving on down to number 3, we have the Tier 6 Premium German Destroyer, the Karl von Schonberg. So the Schonberg is a destroyer that is a weird mix. She was originally released back when the German destroyer line split happened and we got the what are essentially very small light cruisers out of the German tech line. And she was originally pitched as a mix between the French destroyers and these new German destroyers. So she has 150mm guns and single turrets, which, 150mm, that's very large for a tier 6 DD to have on her. And she gets a heal, which is very, very, very good for a tier 6 DD to have. But what we wind up having here is they somehow managed to take like the least appealing aspects of the line mixes and mix them together. I'm sorry, of the French DD line and the German DD line, and mix them together. Like, the ship is fast, but it doesn't get the French DD damage saturation, obviously, because it gets the heal, which, sure, heal will more than make up for that. It does get the 150mm guns of the German split, but they don't have the super AP that the split DDs have, so you wind up with 150mm guns with, they do pack one heck of a punch, and if a cruiser does just slip up and show you the broadside, you can easily citadel them, but it's unlike the split line where you can absolutely annihilate whatever ship is facing against you with their guns. Like, those guns are so accurate and so hard-hitting that you can literally just, like, rip a ship apart. You can take out their turrets, take out their rear turrets, take out their torpedo tubes, to where they're just, they're just a cruise ship at that point. You can't really do that with the Schonberg. And it winds up being pretty underwhelming, too, because of that. The HE is not great at all, because, again, it's ideally an AP-focused DD, but you don't get the hyper AP, so when you do have to use the HE, because you don't have the improved AP, to where you can pin stuff pretty much no matter how it angles to you, even if it's superstructure or whatever, you have very mediocre HE. And you wind up being a pretty poor gunboat with a rather long reload time because, again, 150mm guns. Now, of course, because it's 150mm guns, you do get pretty good HE pins, but the HE DPM is quite low. It's not a terrible ship, in my opinion, but again, there's better options that you can get at tier 6. You could go just for the French tech line or the German tech line, or you can get one of the mini tier 6 premium DDs that are better than this. So it winds up being a mix of both worlds that is kind of just in my mind. Again, not a terrible ship. I do like the commander that we got out of the event. If you don't know, it's the guy that does the German dub for the Die Hard movie, the first one and the best one. So yeah, again, not a terrible ship. There's just better options at this tier, and one that I wouldn't recommend. Alright, going on down to number 2, we have the Tier 7 American Premium Battleship, the California. So, the California is an odd ship, because there's a much better option a tier down called the Arizona. These ships have the same guns, and they do the same thing, except the Arizona does it better, and it's a Tier 6. So you don't get up-tiered to Tier 9 games like you do with the California. The California is certainly a very cool historical ship. I'm glad that she's in the game. It just seemed a little odd that they just basically took the Arizona, moved it up, and then made the California out of it. I mean, again, they didn't actually, copy and paste the ship model or anything like that, but I'm saying, the ships play exactly the same. They're both medium to long-range snipers. They're slow. They have 12, 14-inch guns with a longer reload time for their tier. But again, the Arizona does it better than the California, and the California is kind of just a miserable experience, honestly. Like, the ship looks cool, it's the post Pearl Harbor refit. It's got the modern 5-inch secondaries on it, which I really wish they would have made this thing like a Death Island. It's slow, but it's really tanky. It's got these secondaries with the improved American secondary accuracy on it, the high rate of fire, but no, it's a sniper. So yeah, needless to say, the ship is a massive target. It's easily farmable by anything that it sees. It can't outrun anything because of course, Wargaming can't dare let an American Dreadnought-style battleship cross that 21-knot threshold unless it's getting pushed by, like, a Georgia or something like that. So, yeah, it's a miserable ship to play. There's a much better alternative, one tier down, that costs less than this thing does, gets better matchmaking than this thing does, and does what this thing does, but better. Yeah, so there's no real reason to recommend this ship at all, unless you're just trying to pad out your fleet for the Christmas Snowflake event or the anniversary event or something like that. And again, it's miserable to play. You get outran by everything. You have to be thinking like 2 or 3 steps ahead, because once that flank that you're on falls, you're pretty much dead because you can't run away. You're too slow. So you have to be playing from all the way in the back. So, yeah, again, a ship that I really wouldn't recommend. There's a much better alternative, one tier down, that does the same thing, but better, and gets better matchmaking. Alright, on the way down to number 1, which is the Tier 8 Premium British Cruiser, the Hampshire. Bet no one saw this coming after my Hampshire review last week. Yeah, Hampshire is a newly released Tier 8 British Premium Heavy Cruiser that is AP only. She has 10 230mm guns with improved AP pin angles, so that is pretty nice. She gets torpedoes with a single drop British gimmick, and she's pretty maneuverable. She accelerates quite quickly, although her top speed is pretty low. Her turrets rotate pretty quickly as well, and the shells are pretty darn accurate. But beyond that, it's pretty miserable because it still has the British Heavy Cruiser or British Cruiser armor layout, which means it has a massive citadel that's very easy to hit, and she doesn't get a hill. Yeah, a British Cruiser with the traditional British Cruiser armor layout with no hill at Tier 8. And again, this thing can see Tier 10. And it sees Tier 10 a lot thanks to the way Tier 8 matchmaking is. So, it's a really miserable experience. Thinking Otago, a British Otago, but worse in most ways. Again, the guns are pretty darn accurate, but the flight time of the shells, man, it's not American bad, but it gets there, especially when you're firing at extremely long range. Now, Wargaming said this is supposed to be a long-range maneuverable cruiser, and it is. You can get the range over 20 kilometers with a spotter plane, which is really impressive for a cruiser. But again, by the time the shells get there, most targets, even battleships, will have time to maneuver and dodge your shells. And again, she doesn't get HE. So there's cases when, of course, especially since you can see Tier 10 ships, that you just can't do much to them besides try to farm their superstructure. And once their superstructure gets saturated, you're kind of just stuck there going, well. Now, she's a pretty darn good kiter. If you are forced to push into this thing, it probably will chew you up pretty good. She has 10-kilometer torps with a 9.7-kilometer detection range. But again, it can't sustain because there's no hill, there's no smokescreen, and there's no radar. So it lost the 3 consumables that usually help the British cruisers stay in the fight. They're either able to smoke up and farm you down like that. They have radar to where they can spot your DDs and such for the team that are spotting them. So normally DDs avoid their radar range, which is usually, of course, far beyond their detection range. But no, there's none of that on the Hampshire. Now, right now, again, she's only available in the, the Voyages Around the World event, but Wargaming again has stated that she will go on sale later on as a normal premium in the Armory or in the premium shop. So again, one that I would not recommend. There's plenty of other Tier 8 and below, or, mid-tier, mid to high tier British premium cruisers that you can get that are much better than this thing. So I would avoid this one. It's unfortunate because it's a neat design and a neat concept. If they gave her a hill, I think this ship would be infinitely better. Not even a super hill, just maybe a normal hill, or even just maybe an improved hill or just a normal hill. That's what I meant to say. But they did not. So yeah, guys, I would pass on this one when it comes out for sale normally. So guys, let me know in the comments down below, what are your top 5 premium ships to avoid picking up or avoid wasting money or resources on. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Labor Day, enjoying this holiday. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 40,000 subscribers. We're getting very close to that goal. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. I hope you guys have a wonderful Labor Day. Have a wonderful week. And hope to catch you guys in the next one.